Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased. Joining me, Mike Armistead. Mike is a serial tech entrepreneur and he's currently the CEO of Pulse Security AI. Mike, I don't like to steal from the light of my guests. Usually, I keep it to them to introduce themselves. So, basically, tell us a little more about you, your background, your journey, and what you're currently up to. And then we're going to start the discussion from there. Of course, as the guest might as the audience might guess, is we're gonna talk a lot today about cybersecurity and AI. So the floor is yours, and then we will start discussion from there.
Well, I appreciate it, Mehmet, and thank you for having a show. It's kind of perusing the different episodes that you've had. It's a wide variety. It's really, really interesting in a lot of cases. For me, I'm currently the CEO and co-founder of a company called Pulse Security AI, and I'm entering my fourth decade of professional life. So I won't give the gory details that'll bore you and your audience. But safe to say, I've been through a number of technology transitions because I've been in technology my whole professional career. From the rise of the PCs to client server to cloud, and now
Wow.
in this wave of AI. And really the last 10 years, I've been in the AI space, and that was before it became really popular. So, that two companies ago, I co-founded and was CEO of the company called Response Software, and it was using AI to basically create a virtual security operations center analyst, to process all those alerts and everything that kind of come their way. Uh, Actually, a very popular space right now too. Um, and most recently, we've taken a lot of our learning of what we've done, and now that LLMs and other kinds of models and techniques are going into the space, we're doing using more agentic kind of systems and context graphs and these things to create something that is actually aimed at security leaders. So an AI agent for them that allows them to help translate what's going on from a technology standpoint into really business risk and business terms.
Great, and thank you again, Mike, for being here with me today. I gonna kind start from a little bit your journey, and because you said like you've seen it all, you know, and what a time to be in currently. Things are changing so fast, and people sometimes get lost between all the headlines. You've built companies across multiple tech waves, I would say, from the early internet till today with the AI age. I'm a big fan of spotting patterns. So what have you seen, like from patterns perspective, like things that, of course, not the tech itself, but there are like some patterns that keep repeating in every cycle. What are like these patterns that you have spotted, Mike?
Yeah, great question. Because there clearly are patterns that happen in this. I think we're all in technology. We get really excited about all this stuff. One of the very clear patterns is everybody thinks it's going to happen very fast, and
Yeah.
and what I'm talking about it is that the our whole environment will transition to making use, in this case, of AI and agentic systems and that kind of thing. And I do think we just assume it's going to happen in the first years, and realizing we're in the early adopter stage, and we have a long way to go. I remember because I was in the consumer internet space when kind of the rise of Web 1.0, and it was a lot of the same headlines you're hearing today about AI. It's going to have massive disruptions. There won't be any other retailers. They'll all be online. The brick and mortar retailers are all would go away. And it took us, I don't know, about 10, 15 years for Amazon really to get all the way there because they were just a little bookstore at the time. Um,
Right.
so I think one of the clear patterns is it takes a long time to build the foundation to make these things reach the general population. And I think that's a clear pattern that is one of those things that happen kind of with all the technology transitions. I think the other one is you do see even within that transition, you see generations come and go. I was part of the first wave of search engines, at a company that, was in a startup that got bought by a search engine called Lycos. I don't know if you'll even remember Lycos, but that
Of
was in
course.
the age of InfoSeek and Yahoo and Excite, these search engines. Yeah, does anyone really remember that? That first wave came and went, and Google, kind of came up through during that time, because it just focused on really the business aspect a little bit more than the technology aspect. And that's another pattern that I see, is that in technology, quite often we run to the technology, and it's very important because you have to build foundation. But ultimately, what wins is the business side of it. And the people that can figure out how to provide real value to customers are the ones that really have the staying power through that. But they might. So, here we are in AI. Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be OpenAI? Is it going to be Anthropic? Is it going to be? I don't know. It's history would tell you that one of those companies might make it, but the rest of ultimately won't.
Yeah, yeah, it's a destiny, I believe, Mike. Like, and I'm with you. Like, history kind of, they say, repeats itself. Really, history repeats itself. But what surprises me, I thought, like, before the internet, like, I thought like maybe not all people have access to, let's say, history books, or let's say not everyone can go and access the archives, like, of certain things and learn from it. And the internet kind of changed that because information became available to all of us. But looks like we still don't go and learn from the things which actually they are under our fingertips, right? So I think it's something which, it's a human nature to get these excitements. And maybe I will discuss it later with you on the show today. And also, like, the people call it hype, some people they call it the bubble, whatever that is, which also let people become skeptics. Some people become so excited, and we don't have this, I would call it the balance. Now, I want to come to the area which currently you're, you know, building with, and you have an expertise in, which is cybersecurity, right? Uh, 2 years ago, one of my guests, like, he was kind of, quote unquote, having a rant, and he said the cybersecurity failed us. I mean, as a market, as all the vendors. Why? Because people couldn't understand what are the gaps. And you talk about the security value gap. So people spend billions maybe of dollars, if we count globally, on security, but still we get breached. We still hear about ransomware attacks. We still hear about, now with the AI impersonating other people and all these things. Why this happens, Mike?
Boy, if I had the exact answer to that, I'd be in a good spot. No, I think there's a number of things as to why that has happened. Some of it is the history of how the cybersecurity market kind of grew up. It all started with network engineers looking at packets to see if there was something malicious in the network packets. And it really, how it evolved was every time we expanded our attack surface from internal networks to, external cloud to, all sorts of other things, the cybersecurity market kind of ran to figure out a solution to that. And what it resulted in was many, many technologies, all kind of focused on really a pretty narrow, problem space. And so when organizations have had to build their security program, they end up with a whole bunch of vendors with a whole bunch of, solutions to different things. And nobody really took much of a step back and say, well, how do we manage this whole thing? It's kind of like, fighting a battle and just focusing on every little skirmish that's going on. And then somehow, usually with people though, we translate that to what does it mean to me as an organization? If I'm a corporation doing cybersecurity defense. So, part of that evolution just made it very difficult to take a strategic view and to help that. And so now you see in cybersecurity, it's very obvious. We've swung that pendulum all the way over to detection. So that's almost all only the only thing we do is try to detect and respond to things. Whereas the more prevention side has really been something that's lacking. And again, not for trying. It's more that how do you keep up? And now we're in this age of we're even, have the adversaries using AI to, create attacks that are so fast and so broad in scope. Um, how are you going to keep up with that without having really thought about the prevention kind of side to it? So, there's many other reasons, but I think that's a real core part. And I like to liken it to look at the other functions in an organization. So walk into the office of the CFO, who's in charge of risk, but financial risk for the company, much
Right.
like a CISO is in charge of risk, but cyber risk. And they where do they go? They go to their ERP system to gain really the foundation of what the answers are. First of all, like where are we with our cash? What are inflows and outflows? How well are we doing? How much cash do we have left? If you're a startup, you think about that. But it might be, what opportunities can we take because of our situation? And, for maybe public companies, it's how do we report exactly where we're at? You walk into the office of a VP of sales or a chief revenue officer, and they're going to go to their CRM system to tell them, any particular deal, where's it at in the stage of the pipeline, um, to be able to do forecasting of what they think will happen over the quarter, all that kind of thing. Go to a chief information security officer and ask them to go to their system. What do? Uh, they go to their people because we use human middleware to try to connect the dots between all these stovepipes of technologies. And it's really, like I said, very difficult to do that. And, as you can tell, I think we can use these age of AI and especially agentic systems to help make that transition and give something to the security leaders so they can better manage and really think about the prevention side of their security program.
Right. I gonna follow up on this and start from kind of the 40,000 foot or 30,000 foot, whatever that is, and try to narrow down later. So on this point, there is no doubt, Mike, and I hope you would agree with me, is that from translating the business to the business, the value of the cybersecurity technologies in general have failed. And the reason I'm saying I'm gonna take a more holistic approach, I'm sure, and I'm transparent usually with my audience. We're recording on the 25th of Feb, so probably gonna go in the second week of March. Um, 2 weeks ago and last week, we saw like how investors reacted to news about Anthropic. They released some tools that they can go and check the security of the code, right? So, uh, and the whole market, like especially the stock market related to cybersecurity, fell down. The first thing that came to my mind, Mike, is looks like me included, because I was also, and sometimes still I do it from time to time, you know, as consultants, as people in tech, looks like we failed to translate to the business, these technologies that we use, the different technologies, and we start to talk more about tools rather than talking about business outcomes, right? So now, this is why I'm trying to relate to what you were mentioning. If I want to relate this to agents, do you think agents would do better job than us explaining to everyone, the boardroom included, like, this is actually the business outcomes. This is what we are saving. This is where we are like mitigating risks when we have these tools in house. How agents can be better than us, and we have to admit that we didn't do a good job, because even I put a post a couple of days ago and I said on LinkedIn, and I said all what we have done for years decades, just put buzzwords there, zero trust, I don't know what. And again, don't get me wrong. I'm not against the technology. I know like what zero trust is, and I know exactly technically how it works. But I mean, we did these fancy words. We put them in front of the business, and then the business said, "Hey, what's the outcome of this?" So I know it's a loaded question, but I would love to hear your opinion on this.
No, I think it's a great question because I think it very specifically uh, articulates the problem that we have in cybersecurity a little bit. Is that uh, it is truly that translation from the technology that we love to the, like you said, the business outcome. And I think the reason we have a hard time doing that is generally, uh, every business is in a different situation. I like to call it kind of situational security. So you know, you, and when you have tools that are trying to help you do the defense and the mitigation of your risks, uh, not a, they have to take it generically because that's what the vendors do. They have to try to keep their market really broad. And so, that's one of the reasons why I think some things has failed because you have uh, something that's producing alerts. And certain alerts may be important, certain alerts are not important, depending on your situation, what technology you have in your stack, the skills of your people, how many people you have, how much budget you have to actually, even use. All these factors are incredibly important. And I would say, there's something that I think is going to become more and more important in this space is the discussion about context. There's a technology behind this a little bit that AI and agentic systems kind of enable, and it's you may have heard this term, but it's a context graph. But it's really just a construction of what's the context for a particular organization, because the security equation is uh, part, did you detect something, and part, does it mean anything in my context? And that's why you hear so much about false positives and why it's always hard to kind of weed through all that to get it. And so much energy in the cybersecurity space has gone into just trying to prioritize and optimize all this information that happens. But that equation is the key. And the part that's been missing has been the context. And so what have we done? Well, to fill that void of the context, we've stuck people in the middle of it because people are really good at that, is like connecting the dots between, oh, I'm seeing this over here, but I know that doesn't matter to me because we bought, our whole thing is based off of this technology. And so I'm not going to worry about that alert. And so your original question, or where you started that from, was do I think agentic systems can help in this? Absolutely, I do. I think, and it's because of the scope and the speed and the things that agentic system can help us do. Now, what I don't think they're going to help us with, certainly in the short term, is the final judgment. I think we still need people in there with their experience and knowing the business side to do that. But the heavy lift of getting at least the initial context to any kind of technology or any kind of signal that we're seeing, I think there's a lot that technology can be applied to that. And I do think, that's the exciting part about these agentic systems. I think that, I've been in this business a long time, and we tried to do a lot of that, even 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and we had to use very different kinds of things. But the LLMs bring, a kind of the secret sauce to this problem. And but boy, there's still a long way to go. I mean, we at our company, we are putting the scaffolding around that, because it isn't just a write a single prompt and you're going to get the right answer, kind of thing. It's going to be very complex prompt books. You have to, really do all you can to weed out the hallucinations, and there's all sorts of techniques to do that. There's all sorts of things about using those models. But at the same time, the big part of that is the context. And I think that's where and we as humans haven't been able to keep up with the context. I think that's where the great promise of this technology really lies.
Right. Now, because you mentioned AI and the agents, we've seeing more and more talk about keeping humans in the loop, right, while using AI and agentic AI. Now, historically, also, and I know like some people would not like what I'm saying, but as humans, we did terrible mistakes in cybersecurity as well. So, we really want to keep humans in the loop when it comes to cybersecurity?
Oh, I think short answer would be we do, at least right now, that technology, we judgment isn't part of really a lot of that technology yet. I mean, there's things it can do and it can bring forward, you know, the interesting things that connect the dots. And it obviously, as we all know, because we all use those LLMs, they speak very well and they're very confident in their answers, but sometimes they make up the different parts of it. So you actually do need, I believe, people in there in that final judgment. Now, there's going to be certain tasks that, yeah, can you can you make it more autonomous? And you
Uh-huh.
will be able to, absolutely. But there'll be typically low-level tasks and not making big strategic decisions like I'm going to shut off this server, which happens to be your main, transaction processing engine. You know, you don't want the technology to do that quite yet. Now that's a simplified version. I mean, you're obviously can give the LM the
Right.
context and the smarts to not do that, but I still believe that that at least here in these next few years, it's going to be very important that you have a human in the middle of many of these workflows, uh, and especially the ones that deal with strategy and that too, because the LLMs are they're getting better, but heck, even 6 months ago, it couldn't do a lot of the things that they're doing now. So we'll be able to ride that wave through, and more can be autonomous. Uh, but yeah, I still think you want people watching, the real important aspects in cybersecurity, especially.
Right. Now, I'm gonna kind link the beginning of this episode with this, and you know, talking about the AI hype in cybersecurity specifically, right? Now, of course, I'm just mentioned the example of Anthropic and the tool that they have released, and everyone was thinking, oh, like now, like we don't need all these cybersecurity vendors because I can go and vibe code them, which is of course not true. But I mean, if we want to think about it realistically, what do you think the areas that AI would really make it, and where do you think like we still need probably, I don't know, like at least 5 years before we reach, what people think they can do with the AI when it comes to cybersecurity specifically?
Yeah, I would. What's going to make it is, um, and I'll talk about a little thing, a little outside of cybersecurity just for a second, because we're
Sure.
seeing where it's making it is in coding. Even our developers, I think very differently about building a company on the tooling that we have. And if you're in software, you see it. It's no longer are the tasks that take long, the actual code, typing out the code. Um, those aren't really even part of what you do today. You're very much a general manager of your code base, and you're trying to determine which agents do which tasks and getting that. But what's interesting of it that you're bringing up is even within that, uh, our developers at times struggle with keeping all the balls in the air or the plate spinning or however you kind of talk about that, because they'll have dozens of agents doing hundreds of tasks all at the same time, and it's tough for them as the conductor of all these agents to keep track of that. So when you start to talk about now rolling this kind of technology out to the rest of, let's say, cybersecurity, and that we don't really have the scaffolding to do a lot of that yet. And it's really even how the models have evolved. Even with developers, it started out with, oh, they'll give me advice. Then it's, oh, they'll generate the code. Oh, now I got to think about, is that code secure? Is it high performance? Is it, what's all the attributes of it? that whole scaffolding about how they're doing it, they're still experimenting with many different ways to go about that. And so we're going to see that happen into the different functions. Now, now to kind of the heart of your question, I do think there are certain things that the agents will actually do better than humans. We get, we, processing hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions in large organizations of the alerts that come from all the tools that we bought over all the years and being able to make some sense of them, especially if you have, again, the context graph that kind of goes with all this, uh, they'll be able to do it faster and quicker, much like our developers can. I mean, one just recently came to me and said, overnight, I completed 147 tasks that were part of our tasks, but it was overnight because I let this whole crew of agents go about it. And he spent a lot of time building scaffolding around it, but that's the end business result. Same thing in cybersecurity. The end result is mitigating risk. And so what
Right.
you're trying to do is get the picture of risk for yourself. And that can come from the alerts from all sorts of places, outside, external, new threats that are around, and are they targeting your peers, and all these things that become factors. And I think they can help piece that together. But you still need controls,
Right.
security controls. You still need a lot of the infrastructure that's going to run your business, and protect your business from malicious intent. And so the AI and agents will do a good job of that. I think they'll also help support people in making judgments about, okay, knowing what I know about my business and knowing what my budget is and knowing, what kind of attackers tend to target me. Um, Here's my strategy to go about mitigating that risk. That's still a very human function. And at least, hey, at least for 5 to 10 years, I don't know,
Yeah.
a lot of progression, and maybe you can embed a lot of that into something as well. But today you got to kind of, build that up.
Right. Now, you kept mentioning the word scaffolding, Mike, a couple of times, right? So, if I want to put this into something tangible, I would say, how does this, you know, scaffolding looks like? Is it like a system of record? Like, what is it exactly?
Again, different things in different kinds of settings. But yeah, for the security leaders, imagine, I do think it's a modern security of record. It's funny. I hesitate a little bit using that term because what pops into everybody's mind is, oh, that's a user interface in front of a database. It's like, no, I mean, that is what security of records in a lot of things were. But in agentic systems, they're way more active. They're able to do more. And in fact, I think they're able to build that context graph that allows them to be very custom to every organization. So yeah, I think part of the scaffolding is just having that, and then figuring out what are those indicators that the leaders need to know if they're under attack, to know if they're uh, secure in a certain way, to know if they're mature enough to be able to handle, if something goes wrong. All those kinds of things are really bits and pieces all around cybersecurity programming. I mean, when we say cybersecurity program, I think people, probably have different views that come to mind,
Right.
but it's everything from the program that helps employees recognize phishing attacks to the endpoint detection that's going on there to, you know, uh, what you'd mentioned, like, access control. Do you do that in a zero trust way, or do you just, there's all sorts of things that go into it. And it's taking all that and making sense of, did I mitigate the risk to my business? So to your board of directors, you as a security leader have to say, give a good presentation of, and this is where the business relevancy comes in. I've protected maybe our customers in this way because I've mitigated these risks. And there's a lot that rolls up into that. And I think that's the scaffolding that needs to get there. And for security leaders, make one this last final point. I do believe
Sure.
it's the context. This context graph is the scaffolding that allows them to say, for me and my business, and since my job is to mitigate the cyber risk, uh, this is how I'd answer this. This is what programs I put in place to do that.
Right. Now, we talked a lot about, let's say, one side of the story, which is defense, right? I have a very dear friend, when we used to work together, and he's trying to explain, how bad actors work. He used to say, like, there are people like us, they have kids that they go to school, wives that they have to go do shopping, so they have to be creative. And of course, the idea is like also these guys, they are also following the trends. So now when it comes to AI, and we've seen it, we've seen it many times, and offensive cybersecurity attacks are becoming more and more sophisticated, and we know for a fact that they are utilizing also, you know the technology that is out, it's in the wild, and everyone can do it. And I think, the open source kind of, these LLMs, without going into the any geopolitical things, I've seen like also ways you can extract the LLM, train another LLM on that. So bunch of ways where you can bypass the security, and the I would say the guardrails that usually, at least this is what they say, the LLM producers, whether it's OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, everyone else. So the technology is in the hands of the bad actors also as well, Mike. So me, as first as a cybersecurity leader, should I be more worried? Me, as someone sitting on the board and then maybe listening to this, or maybe someone pointed me out to listen to this episode, how much should I be worried? And the question that comes to mind, okay, what we do now? Like, if whatever technology we're gonna implement, whatever measurements we're gonna take, these bad actors gonna try to counter attack us with the same technology. What we do?
Yeah, as you said, this is clearly already going on. I mean, cybersecurity in many ways has always been an arms race. You have the adversaries, they get advantages, the defenders, counteract that, and then it kind of goes back and forth, back and forth. And I think that's clearly something that's happening right now. I do think that the adversaries have the advantage as of, this state in late February of 2026. Even I noticed, you had a recent guest on that talked about the different governance and the ISO standards and things like that.
Yeah,
Here, a crazy thing is, that's even way behind to help. They're there to assist the corporations to say, here's some guidelines to help you. Not one of them mentions agentic systems. They talk about AI and AI models, but they don't talk about it. There's going to be thousands, millions of agents running around pretty soon. How do you know what they're doing? How do you know what? Same thing, and to relate it back, I mean, that is how the adversaries do it. They're writing very agentic systems that can be very patient at the times they need to be patient, and very fast and targeted at areas they need to be fast and targeted in. Very difficult to defend on. And so, absolutely, we need another crop of tools to do that. But that's why I guess I made the distinction of, you're not going to be able to detect everything in the speed. Now you're going to have to act at that speed. You're going to have to do some detection there. But this is why prevention becomes so much more important. If you think about, let me take a case in cybersecurity that everyone will be familiar with.
sure.
Ransomware had been a big problem in many industries in that too. Um, the prevention of ransomware, and that typically starts with like a phishing attack or something like that, where someone accidentally gives up some information. So same old vulnerabilities, same old techniques get used. They just happen at different speeds in that. But to counter, like say the ransomware and the malware attacks, it's a multi pronged mitigation strategy that organizations should take. yes, they should have something on their endpoints that detect when something odd is going on. But they also should segment their network so that the blast radius of when something comes in and tries
Right.
to take over could only affect a little bit. Um, they need to train their folks to do that and too. So there's multiple things, but that's thinking prevention. With AI, we got to think that way too, right? I mean, we know the adversaries are equipped with these tools, and so we need to be thinking, okay, if it is actually an agent that can come in, that's probably generically just looking at all the vulnerabilities I've got and putting a little piece of software somewhere and then sitting there for 10 months and then reactivating and that. I mean, we're going to see a lot of that stuff, and I think you got to think about your overall strategy and just think through, put yourself in the adversary's shoes. And that's why there's many organizations that also do that in cybersecurity, because it's very helpful. And I also think you have to practice. So it's surprising how few people really do tabletop exercises into, if I were to get breached, what happens? How do we tell our customers? What does
Right.
the board do? How do we tell the press? What do we? I mean, and that's like maybe a high level one, and also just at the operators level, like what do we do when there's a breach and that too. So you got to practice. If you're going to play the game, you can't. If it's game time, you don't want to wing it. You have to at least know what you're doing. So
Right.
a lot of prevention things that you can do that should be part of your overall security program. And we're going to see, because already every vendor, if you encounter a vendor that doesn't say they have an AI component, you know, that
Yeah.
we're about to come up to our big trade show at RSA, and it's
Yeah.
gonna it's gonna be like that. Everyone's gonna be talking about that.
It's gonna be raining AI.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we need that. We need that in the different silos,
Absolutely.
but we need something that cuts across the silos too. And hopefully, at Pulse Security AI, this is partly what we're doing.
Hopefully. Now, Mike, just two takes for me, and I think and thank you for sharing your point of view also as well. So this is for the audience, like whether you are in the tech yourself, or maybe if you are, you know, a business leader, or maybe even if you are like out in the market and you're wondering what's gonna happen. Actually, there's no better time to be innovating in this space like now. Like this is my own point of view. It's not a financial advice guy, but like if you think like we're done because the AI can now do everything just because one model they can do some quality check on the security of the code, that's not all. Like these guys now they have better tools, and it's now time to. And again, to your point, Mike, I think I call it always back to basics when you talked about going back to prevention, and I think this is what, unfortunately, and maybe I'm guilty as well, because 15 years ago, what we used to do when I was working, in the disaster recovery team, we used to take like templates because we are lazy. We just like put them and we say, hey, yeah, we tick the box because we have done this. It's not really prevention. Like, it's like just you say, I have an insurance on my car, but at the end of the day, your car insurance provider actually they went bankrupt and they can't do anything. So right, so you
Yeah,
need
you
your
got to be
due
a good
diligence.
driver. You got to be a defensive driver. You got to do all those things. It's
Yeah,
insurance.
yeah, exactly. So you also do your due diligence, and
Yeah.
prevention is all about due diligence. It's about to make sure, like, have you set it up in the right way? And this is why, you know, again, I'm not here to blame anyone, but I think we made it so simple that it's like tick boxes, right? Check marks. Okay, this. But it's so unhuman, it's so robotic. And I would be happy to see an agent doing better job here than us as humans, honestly.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
I agree that I used to always have a saying, which in some ways the checkbox compliance thing is just, it gives a roadmap to the attackers too, because they go, oh, they
right,
probably did all these steps, and so here's our way we're going to get around those. So it actually, that is the place where I think some more innovation can happen, because it's just that the agents can be watching all those points and they can be taking actions um, to do that, but it's and even suggesting what should be set up in that. And because the models pull in so much information from so many different places that they know generically what to do. And that's, again, if you have the context, now you know specifically for you, you can use what's the best practice going on in a lot of places. And then your stack, what particularly do you need to do? And I think that agents that can do that will provide great value in this whole space. Because as you mentioned, a lot of security, even though we have adversaries using AI, they typically still go after the vulnerable parts that have been age old in there. They could still, you need to do good security hygiene, as they'd say. You need to do the basics really well still, because often they're making use of things that we've known about for decades, but we just haven't, like you said, a little bit lazy. Haven't, no one's found it yet. So why do I have to worry about that, patching that, all those kinds of things. These days, it gets more and more important when you have the adversaries using agents that can do this, that can look for stuff very quickly and make use of it.
Right. Now I gotta ask you something more related to you as a founder and the serial entrepreneur, Mike. Uh, in your previous companies, like you were able to reach the what we call the category leader, right? So how do you identify the right problem? I'm asking this for because as I was telling you before we start the recording, I like to give back to founders and entrepreneurs. So, especially in this domain or maybe in AI in general, how do you advise people now to identify the right problem before it becomes obvious? So, to spot the signal, to spot the patterns, and build something that can become a category leader, or even maybe they can create their own categories.
Yeah, great question. A few words kind of there. I mean, part of it's got to do with is what we've talked about earlier, the different trends that you're seeing. But don't think about jumping onto that trend. Think about what's this particular trend going to need 5 years from now or a few years from now, and what's doing. So, like when I co-founded a company called Fortify, which was an application security, it was really about software had become just such a central part. As they'd say, some of the largest banks, they're really software companies that happen to do a banking kind of thing now. They're not so much about the vaults and the hard, where part of that. Uh, but look at these trends and say, what are the things to do? So I've tried to do that. The very first company I was at, that was a great success, when IPO and everything, it was when it was around software quality mostly, but that was because software was becoming big and important. So we knew that the quality would be at, and then this AppSec company that I started, it translated to, oh, now people are breaking into places because they're looking at code vulnerabilities. Maybe we should, there's something like that, but it's all because of the software was growing and becoming more and more important. I think, in this age of AI, you know, thinking about what AI can enable, but then what does it need? It's kind of I'd say, Mehmet, it's the kind of the classic look for in the gold rush. You could join the gold rush and try to find gold, or you could be, you could sell picks and axes and tents and things
Shovels.
like that. And so I've tended to be in my career part of that group that was selling the picks and axes and things that would help people do that. And I think there's a lot of profit to doing that. And there's a great need, because the need is always there. And so yeah, I think anyone who has an entrepreneurial bent, it's looking at those kinds of things. And of course you look for gaps, in that,
Right.
people are supplying things, then can we do it? And I think, I'm in this one today because, uh, 3-4 years ago, I don't think you could have even attacked this problem in a meaningful way. Providing a system of record for the security leader, you needed this agentic infrastructure to be able to do it. So you have to look for the confluence of new tech, uh, same old problem, and can you solve it a different way that's better? Those are the things that I know I look for.
Yeah, if you might allow me, Mike, just I would encourage people to one thing. Like although we know cybersecurity is a very, 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 very crowded market, but if, to your point, like you can find, how to be able to sell the accent pixel, right? So it's a big, but also, if you have the the distribution, like how you would be able to put it in the marketplace, and this is through a team you would gather maybe from your own experience. And the second thing which I'm seeing more and more like very important is the proprietary data that you might have. This is becoming a moat also as well. And of course you as a founder, and how you are able to convince people with your vision. And I tell people now one thing, like, of course, usually I'm into the blue ocean kind of mindset. But now with AI, I started to say, okay, like anyone can create anything. And I reminded myself the other day that because we're talking about the Googles and the other and Yahoo search when they started. And actually Google, they were not like the first one. Like actually they were like number 20 maybe in this space. So there were like a
Right.
lot of search engines, but they were able first from technology perspective. But I think they cracked the code on the distribution. So this is how they were able to grow the
Yeah,
business.
and to your point, I mean, I was part of Lycos, so they came to us and said, "Let us be your search."
Right.
For so they OEM'd. People don't remember this. Yahoo, they did the search,
Yeah.
the
Right.
technology for that, and what the thing they cracked was how to make money on it. Because they're targeting, and that's their cash cow today. So you're absolutely right. It's you don't remember that Google didn't start from scratch, and Amazon didn't start from scratch either. I mean, these companies we hold up there, Netflix didn't start from scratch. I mean, these all these places, they were a late entry into it,
Right.
and there's lots of opportunity even if you're late. I mean,
It's the right
absolutely, just have
moment,
to do it
right
different.
time, vision. Like this is
Yeah.
yes, of course like more than this, but I mean these are the main ones. Now, as we are close to the end of this episode, Mike, where people can find out more and get in touch.
Yeah, I told you earlier we're still in stealth mode for that, but there's places where I would like to direct people because we're doing a couple other things. One is we have a site where we're just talking about a lot about the problems, and one of the areas that is very particular is how does security leaders talk to their board and do that. And we have a website called the security-impact-circle.org. So all one word, security-impact-circle.org. And it's just blogs from experienced people in the space, from directors, from security leaders, all that. And we have that as content, and you'll learn more about Pulse Security AI from that. You feel free to please go to our website, and it's pulsesecurity.ai. Because you'll get ready for our journey too, and then you can. I mean, we'll soon have things where we'll be in preview mode and things that you can sign up for if you're interested in that, and then you can see generally what we're doing.
Great. Of course, I'm gonna make sure that I'll put all the links in the show notes so people who are listening on their favorite podcasting app they can find that easily, both the blog and of course the website of the company. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you will find in the description. I don't like to make this, but this is the first time I'm gonna make it because it happened many times. So, Mike, I hope I'm right. Uh, People who appear on the show, especially when they are in the early stages, they go very big. So I'm pretty sure with your experience and the team that you have gathered together and the vision that you have, the company would go to the place that you wanted to be in. I have no doubt on this. Just without mentioning names because I didn't take permission, but couple of people who were on the show 2 years and 3 years ago, I've seen them either they did big exit, big acquisitions. I saw like people raising like very good Series A, Series B who came from the show, and I wasn't mistaken in my view. So just I first time I'm mentioning this, and I feel glad that I was lucky to meet these founders early on in the career, and I'm be looking forward to watch the journey also of Pulse Security, Mike, as well. And at the end, this is how I end my episode. This is for the audience. If you just discovered us by luck, I still have to say this because I'm waiting more people to join. Please subscribe, share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the people who keep coming again and again, thank you for doing so. Really, 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 I'm so grateful for pushing the show across, multiple countries, Apple top 200 podcasts in the category of entrepreneurship. I decided to put it there because was the sweet spot. Tech is a little bit crowded. We're not like completely business. So this is where I saw it's the good. But despite this, we are now at the week of the end of Fab, trending in 3 countries. Every week I see, the podcast in new countries. So this cannot happen without, people who are listening to us. And I really appreciate this. And as I say always, hope you enjoyed and stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.